What started off as an offhand remark from one person,
The difference between us and somebody like GamersNexus or Hardware Unboxed is we test new components, new tests every time. Every project that we do has new data.
has spiraled into a massive controversy, one that threatens to destroy the reputations of two of the biggest tech YouTubers on the platform.
He's free to have his opinion, but we feel his opinion is harmful to the consumer and is harmful to newer reviewers and consumer advocates.
If Steve wants to do his own thing and call himself a YouTuber with strong moral fiber, that's his opinion, and he's entitled to it, and you're entitled to agree or disagree. But if he wants to use words like ethics or investigative journalism, then there are objective standards that he needs to uphold, and he doesn't get to decide when they're important and when they're not.
Hi, I'm the InternetAnarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today we'll be covering the ongoing feud between Linus from LinusTechTips and Steve from GamersNexus, which is unlike anything the tech side of YouTube has seen before. The two creators have thrown accusations at each other, ranging from being unprofessional and petty behind the scenes, to having some kind of personal vendetta against each other for some mysterious reason. But unlike most YouTuber controversies, where it's easy to see who messed up, this one's a lot more complicated, something that is evident from the internet's reaction to the whole thing. The tech YouTube community has split into two camps, those siding with Linus and those standing firmly behind Steve. But as you'll see by the end of this video, this feud is doing nothing more than dragging both their reputations through the mud. If you've ever searched anything about computers on YouTube, you've probably come across one of these creators. Linus is one of, if not the biggest tech YouTubers on the planet. He first started making videos 17 years ago, and has since turned his company, Linus Media Group, into a $100 million YouTube empire, which includes 9 different channels, with nearly 28 million subscribers across all of them. Suffice it to say, Linus is a big deal when it comes to technology-related content on YouTube. Steve, on the other hand, runs a channel called GamersNexus, and while his channel pales in comparison to Linus when it comes to subscribers and overall viewership, Steve more than made up for it with his once impeccable reputation. What earned Steve the internet's respect was his relentless commitment to exposing major tech brands for scamming their customers. He took on some of the biggest names in tech, like Newegg for selling used parts as new, and Nvidia for misleading GPU specs, calling them out for things like shady warranty policies and defective hardware. This reputation crowned him as someone who's willing to take on the big players to defend the average consumer. Unfortunately though, despite the years of trust and goodwill, both Linus and Steve are now at risk of losing everything they've built. And it all started with a single offhand comment from one of Linus's employees, nearly a year and a half ago. Now, we've already covered that controversy in extensive detail in a previous video, but if you haven't watched that, here's a quick recap of what happened. In July of 2023, a YouTuber by the name of Murph's Gaming posted a video tour of the LinusTechTips studio, as well as their new hardware testing facility called Labs. A comment under the video describes it as the office tour that killed LinusTechTips. And while this is quite an exaggeration, it still has a tiny bit of truth to it. You see, the video itself was fairly standard with Murph's Gaming, going on a guided tour of the place, occasionally stopping to chat with some of the employees. However, about 8 minutes into the video, one of Linus's employees said this while discussing their new testing facilities.
The difference between us and somebody like GamersNexus or Hardware Unboxed is we test new components, new tests every time. Every project that we do has new data.
Insinuating that LinusTechTips was better than both Hardware Unboxed and GamersNexus. This rubbed both of these creators the wrong way, with Hardware Unboxed responding first in a tweet reading, "LTT Labs taking shots, I've rerun more benchmarks and Linus has spent money on testing equipment and staff. And if you have to tell everyone how good your testing is, in my 20 plus years of experience, that generally means your testing isn't very good. Your work speaks for itself, guys, that's how you build credibility." However, it seems like Hardware didn't want to escalate the drama even further, because minutes after posting his original tweets, he tried to defuse the situation on his own, stating, "I should note that both Linus and Luke have been good to us, and they're great guys. This is just very disappointing from an LTT employee." Linus also responded to these tweets on the next episode of his WAN Show podcast, and essentially apologized for the way his employee worded things.
We don't want to be talking about it the way that we did. I don't think we should ever make a comparison that is, a good thing we do compared to those other guys. If anything, we should be trying to build each other up.
He did receive some amount of backlash, but it wasn't anything substantial, and things calmed down within days. That is, until Steve decided to drop a nuke on Linus and his massive media empire, with a single video on the 14th of August. This video was titled "The Problem with Linus Tech Tips: Accuracy, Ethics, and Responsibility," and as you might imagine, it was filled to the brim with accusations against Linus and the way he runs his many YouTube channels.
It's simply that we believe LTT or LMG is rushing too much to hit arbitrary and largely self-imposed deadlines that are causing frequent and sometimes significant data errors and information errors.
In addition to calling Linus out for many data errors in LTT videos, Steve also talked about the situation surrounding a company called Billet Labs, which sent a prototype to LTT for a review. According to GamersNexus, Linus used the wrong equipment to test Billet Labs, which is irresponsible as it made the prototype look much worse.
And bring some awareness to these critical issues. We've been thinking on this for a few months now. We have a few main points of discussion for today. They span from raw data that potentially misleads consumers, even if unintentional.
He also talked about LTT accidentally auctioning that one-of-a-kind prototype without Billet Labs' permission. It's important to remember that at this point, Steve had a near-perfect reputation, so him making a 40-plus minute video pointing out the issues with Linus Tech Tips was a massive deal and resulted in immense backlash towards Linus. Within days, LTT lost over 200,000 subscribers. A bigger hit came with a loss of over 5,000 members on their paid streaming service, Floatplane, which would have cost the company over $300,000 per year in lost revenue. This left Linus with no choice but to apologize for the mistakes.
I owe you guys better, and I'm sorry.
He also completely shut down video production for the first time in 16 years to reflect on the criticism and find ways to do things better. And while the community's response to this apology was far from stellar, Linus and his team did manage to fix the issues and regain the trust of their fanbase. For a while, it looked like things were heading in the right direction, and the beef between Linus and Steve was a thing of the past. Unfortunately, this peace barely lasted a year. The two creators are clashing once again, and this time, the drama has exploded into something far more chaotic than their previous feud. However, before we can fully dive into the recent drama, we need some important context. It all started in December of 2024, when a YouTuber by the name of Megalag uploaded his expose video on the popular browser extension Honey. In the video, Megalag presented solid evidence that Honey had been secretly replacing creator referral links with its own, essentially stealing millions of dollars in affiliate revenue from creators worldwide.
So what happened when we got to the checkout page? Well, once Honey popped up, watch what happened to Linus's affiliate cookie after we clicked apply discounts. You see that? Honey came in, removed Linus's affiliate cookie, and replaced it with their own, claiming credit for the sale and pocketing the commission money for themselves.
This video went super viral, to the point of becoming the only thing anyone was talking about on the internet. And it wasn't hard to see why. Just about everyone on YouTube had heard of Honey at some point. This is because up until recently, Honey was one of the biggest sponsors on the platform, and had worked with massive creators like Mr. Beast, Mark Rober, and many more.
Do you have Honey installed?
What's Honey?
Oh, no.
Honey.
Honey is a free browser extension.
Free browser extension.
Free browser extension.
Free browser extension.
That automatically applies coupon codes when you check out online.
Free money, basically.
It's literally free money.
It doesn't make sense to not be using this.
So what's the catch?
There is no catch.
Join Honey. Join Honey.
Join Honey.
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 Honey. Honey.
Honey.
Honey.
Honey.
Honey.
Honey. Honey.
Join Honey.
And while Megalag's video primarily focused on the extension itself, it also featured a section that put Linus Media Group under the spotlight.
But did any of the influencers who are engaging in affiliate marketing ever catch on to what Honey's been doing? Well, it turns out yes, at least one of them did. LinusTechTips, who have been promoting Honey since 2017.
Apparently, Linus knew about Honey's scummy business practices, which is why LMG stopped taking sponsorships from them.
However, in 2022, a different user noticed that LMG were no longer promoting Honey and asked the team if they had been dropped as a sponsor, to which one of Linus's employees responded with, "We ended the partnership with Honey due to the way their service interacted with affiliate links. Essentially, if someone clicked on an affiliate link and then they use Honey and search for a deal, Honey will override that tracking link even if they don't find you a deal. That didn't jive with us, so we ended the partnership.
And according to Megalag, Linus and his team should have made a public announcement exposing Honey, instead of quietly ending their partnership and moving on. This made some people mad at Linus, with one comment under Megalag's video reading, "Instead of raising the alarm, LTT chose to remain silent. This is quite telling." However, the vast majority of people were still on Linus's side, like this one comment that pointed out the flaw in the way Megalag presented Linus's involvement, stating, "Megalag was very misleading with parts of this video, not necessarily about what Honey was doing, but when he tried to claim that nobody besides LTT knew about it. A few seconds of research will turn up tons of articles, videos, and Reddit posts outlining exactly what Honey was doing with affiliate codes, dating back years ago. The only reason LTT ever found out what Honey was doing was because of all the other creators dropping Honey. Why was it specifically Linus's responsibility to go around making sure everyone who wasn't paying attention heard the news?" People on Reddit were also on Linus's side, with a post defending Linus receiving thousands of upvotes, and having little disagreement in the comments. Did you know that your government and internet service provider knows you're watching this video? In fact, they can see and moderate everything you do on the internet. That's why today's sponsor, ProtonVPN, is so important. ProtonVPN is your ultimate tool for protecting your digital privacy and online freedom. With its strong Swiss legal foundation and fully open source code, you can trust that your data is secure. Whether you're traveling and missing your favorite US streaming services, or you need to bypass censorship to access blocked websites, ProtonVPN has you covered with over 10,000 servers in 110 plus countries. Its advanced features include streaming optimized servers, VPN accelerator for lightning fast speeds up to 10 gigabytes per second, and customizable profiles. All this makes it easy to enjoy uninterrupted high quality content. Plus, ProtonVPN's no-log policy and NetShield ad blocker keeps your online activity private. As a special gift to my audience, ProtonVPN is offering a 64% discount by simply using the link in the description and on screen. With that being said, let's get back into the video. However, despite the support, Linus decided to address the situation in the upcoming When Show episode, a decision that turned out to be his biggest mistake since regaining his audience's trust. Linus's response essentially boiled down to, quote, "We didn't think it was necessary."
Really, we didn't really think that, other than, any creator friends, that it was something that impacted the general consumer, so it wasn't something that really merited a full video or anything like that.
His response was far worse than anyone expected, and a separate upload of his statement ended up with nearly as many dislikes as likes, with some of the top comments on the video pointing out the flaw in Linus's logic, stating, "It's not our story to break, I'm the victim here. Holy hell dude, nobody is saying you aren't. Megalag is upset you guys figured this out 2.5 years ago and said nothing to anybody. It's not that deep. And LTT were one of the biggest victims but made the least noise. I think that's what's bothering people. Genuine tech tip would have been to uninstall Honey. At this point, staying silent would have been better for Linus than his poorly thought out response. Something that was perfectly summed up by another person who wrote, "I didn't think this was anything to blame LTT for, not until I came here and then watched them spend 10 minutes explaining how they're not to blame." That said, Linus still had a chance to walk back on this response, apologize, and do the right thing by bringing more light to the Honey issue. During this time, Legal Eagle and countless other YouTubers banded together to file an official lawsuit against Honey. Even if Linus wasn't keen on getting involved in the lawsuit, a simple video breaking down the scam for his millions of viewers could have helped him regain some goodwill and mitigate the backlash. And maybe he would have eventually done that, but we'll never know, because just 2 weeks later, the situation took an unexpected turn. On the 15th of January 2025, Steve uploaded an hour-and-a-half long video titled Investigation, GamersNexus files new lawsuit against PayPal and Honey. He opened the video by talking about the lawsuit he was personally filing against Honey.
"We're suing PayPal and Honey. GamersNexus is the lead plaintiff in a class action complaint filed against PayPal and its property, Honey. The putative class action is already filed, and we're suing PayPal and Honey for 3 things. 1, conversion. 2 is tortious interference with contract. And 3 is unfair and deceptive trade practices. We started working with CPM Legal about a month ago, and in the time since, multiple complaints have been filed, including one by YouTuber Legal Eagle. And to be clear, our lawsuit is a completely separate filing. We're not joining theirs, we filed our own."
But 15 minutes in, things took an unexpected turn. Steve shifted gears and started throwing shade at Linus. He began by pointing out that while his business isn't as affected by Honey anymore, he still wouldn't abandon other creators.
And we won't abandon those of you with your own goals and your own aspirations just because it's not affecting us as much anymore.
This was clearly a jab at Linus's response to the whole situation. Now, if he stopped here, this likely would have completely been fine. Many were already frustrated with Linus for his lackluster response, and Steve highlighting the same point wouldn't have raised any eyebrows. However, he decided to push his luck and started taking more direct swings at LTT.
Linus recently in a WAN Show episode said the following regarding why they did not make a video when they found out about the way Honey works years ago, in response to how he believed he might be perceived if he had raised awareness to Honey's actions when his team discovered them.
Everyone's mad at me. It's that simple. I'm spreading the word for the smaller creators. That argument doesn't save me there, and it's not going to save me if I tell people to uninstall this extension that gets them a better deal so that smaller creators can get their affiliate revenue. Are you kidding me? There is just no way that I make that video and I don't end up hanging from the nearest tree.
Well, that's the video we're making right now. And if that were to result in backlash like he thinks it would, then so be it, because we think it's the right thing to do.
Now, you could argue that Steve's criticism was valid, but the way he shoehorned Linus into what was supposed to be an update about his lawsuit against Honey left a lot of viewers feeling uneasy, with one comment under the video reading, "I feel like the LTT cut was unjustified. I agree supporting consumers and that your move to sue is on the right track. But the drama seems almost out of place. It feels like clickbait at this point to include another YouTuber. You provide great support for charity and are a hard hitter where it counts. The lack of kindness towards Linus is disappointing and surprising in my opinion." So what should have been a straightforward update about Honey and GamersNexus' pursuit of justice instead became the starting point for yet another feud with Linus. This time, however, the tech community didn't rally behind Steve like they did before, and more importantly, Linus had learned from his past mistakes in his previous clash with Steve. So instead of going on an emotional rant, he took his time to craft a rational and measured response for the next WAN Show episode simply titled Breaking My Silence. Linus opened up by highlighting that Steve took his words out of context in the Honey video to support his argument.
Earlier this week, GamersNexus took us out of context again, and I can't keep ignoring this sort of thing. Even if we ignore how disingenuous it is to compare the climate today and what we know today to the climate years ago when we originally dropped our Honey sponsorship, our regular viewers will know that I provided additional context that dramatically changes the meaning of that quote. I mean, I don't expect everyone to agree with my viewpoint. It's very clear that not everybody does. But what I do expect is for it to be fairly represented.
This, on its own, would have been enough to dismantle any argument Steve made against Linus in his video. However, Linus wasn't done yet. He then revisited Steve's previous criticisms of LTT from a video back in 2023. And while Linus admitted that many of Steve's critiques in that video were valid, he also pointed out the fact that Steve did not reach out to him before publishing the video. This goes against the core ethical responsibilities of being a journalist, which Steve claims that he is. YouTuber Tech Potato even called him out for this back in 2023.
But I'd be interested to hear the reason for the disparity. Steve, in his update video, explicitly states he doesn't have to ask permission, but that's not the point here. Reaching out to Linus Media Group wouldn't stop you from posting your video, just like it didn't stop you him posting the Principal Technologies or Newegg videos. The precedent set for the last 20 years of tech journalism and 100 plus years of investigative journalism is that you at least reach out.
Linus then went on to talk about why he thinks Steve is going after him in this manner. To him, this seems more like a personal vendetta, instead of something along the lines of journalistic responsibility. And it wasn't just Linus who thought so. Many in the community had started to share a similar sentiment. One popular theory that could explain the reason Steve was targeting Linus lay in how GamersNexus originally set itself apart from LinusTechTips. You see, GamersNexus stood out by doing deep dives into product data, running detailed tests, and breaking things down in a way most tech channels didn't. Meanwhile, LinusTechTips took a broader approach, discussing the overall viability and experience of using a product rather than the intricate details. And as the theory goes, when Linus built his new labs facility, which was all about in-depth data analysis, Steve felt threatened and started lashing out. A comment on Reddit summarized this perfectly. Steve is jealous of Linus starting labs and thinks they're stepping on GN toes, as if only GN can do testing, etc., and knows labs will be more successful than them and take traffic and business from them. Can't stand the competition or the fact Linus will always be far more successful than him. That said, this is nothing more than a theory, and as you'll see, it's likely not true. But that hasn't stopped people from labeling Steve as petty and jealous. Getting back to Linus's response on the WAN show, he ended the segment by reading an email he sent to Steve before going live. The purpose of this email was to reach out to Steve before doing his response.
Steve, on WAN Show today, I'll be doing a segment outlining some of the ethical and journalistic issues with your content that I've observed personally and that I have seen raised by the community.
To most viewers, this looked like Linus extending an olive branch to Steve. Maybe he was hoping to resolve the drama privately before going public. However, Steve did not take the offer. He actually leaked the full email on both his Twitter and YouTube community page a few hours before the WAN show, alongside a statement reading, "As for an initial written comment on this message, we feel it is a mischaracterization with leading statements and loaded questions. We will await the WAN show appearance where your views are presented, and we will, after that time, respond by sharing the things we've been hesitant to talk fully openly about as well." However, his viewers did not take kindly to Steve wanting to extend the drama, with one person writing, "At this point, it feels petty to do this back and forth between you two. Either have an open conversation face to face or leave it be. This feels like the standard stupid YouTuber drama, but with more professional sounding words and longer emails. It takes away from the points you're making, and in the initial PayPal Honey video, it also felt out of place even then." Viewers also advised Steve to slow down on his hectic upload schedule and take time off to collect himself, similar to what Linus did back in 2023. LTT took their week to pause production and reflect. I think it's time for GamersNexus to do the same. 100 plus hours a week is beyond burnout territory. But just when it seemed Linus had the upper hand in this feud, Steve fired back with a response that left the community more divided than ever. On the 21st of January, Steve posted his latest channel update. In the description of this video, Steve linked to a lengthy blog post containing his response to Linus. However, instead of defending himself against Linus's comments about his journalistic integrity, Steve has decided to go on the offense. In this post, he has included 3 major allegations against Linus, alongside evidence to back his points. These include Linus blatantly plagiarizing Steve's content without any acknowledgement in the past, Steve contacting Linus Media Group about errors in their coverage and them failing to resolve them, and worst of all, Linus being extremely unprofessional and straight up rude behind the scenes. For example, according to Steve, Linus once called him, quote, "less autistic than you used to be," during a call back in 2021. And while all this was quite damning for Linus, it ultimately split the community in two. Many people believe this was Steve's attempted deflection by dodging the core issues and bringing up new allegations against Linus. On the other hand, some also went back to Steve's side in this argument, labeling Linus as a narcissist in the process. Following this exchange, both Linus and Steve stopped talking about each other and moved on to their usual content. And for a few days, it seemed like the feud had finally come to an end. That is, until an unexpected third party entered the picture with even more incriminatory evidence. On the 25th of January 2025, Lewis Rossman posted an hour-long video about Linus titled, "This is not an influencer." He opened the video by criticizing Linus's original response to the Honey situation and his reasoning for not making an expose after learning the truth.
Seemed like he was worried about how he'd be perceived and how he'd be torn apart. So I'm going to quote one of these videos. And I quote, "If I told everybody, uninstall Honey, an extension that supposedly gets them a better deal because I wasn't making enough money from it, do you really, honestly, ask yourself, truly, do you think that would have gone well for me?" So Linus is asking his viewers to ask if they think it would have gone well for him. And my first thing, what makes me want to punch my monitor, is that it's not about you. You gave up the right for it to be about you, or your image, or how you think you'd be perceived when you took their money to advertise a closed source browser extension to all of your users.
He also accused Linus of being a master manipulator who, in Lewis's words, creates false dichotomies to avoid accountability. For instance, Linus's earlier forum post about dropping sponsors, where he argued they shouldn't be expected to create a 3-hour-long video justifying their decisions. This infuriated Lewis to no end, resulting in him getting extremely heated in his video.
You don't have to do a 3-hour-long retraction, you manipulative. That's some bullshit. That's bitch shit right there. What you're doing is you're deflecting accountability and responsibility. You're avoiding it, and then you're twisting what people are saying in your audience to something ridiculous to make them look ridiculous when they don't have to. That's bitch shit. That's child shit. That's not being a grown woman or a grown man. That's being a child.
And this was only the beginning. Lewis then went on to talk about his previous experience with Linus, focusing on the difference between his on-camera charisma and how he was behind the scenes. It started in 2018, with Linus asking Lewis to collab on a video about repairing a broken iMac. According to Lewis, he was already vacationing in Canada at the time, so he decided to drop by LTT and make this video, without charging Linus for any travel expenses. Fast forward to the next year, Linus invited Lewis back to Canada for LTX. Now, for those of you who don't know, LTX is an annual in-person event hosted by LinusTechTips, catering to fans and featuring several other tech creators as guest participants, and Lewis was among those who were invited. However, along with this invitation, Lewis received an email from Linus's wife, Yvonne, stating that the event was already going over budget, so they couldn't cover the travel expenses for Lewis's girlfriend. Despite some back and forth discussions, Yvonne only agreed to cover the hotel stay, leaving Lewis responsible for his girlfriend's airfare. Lewis wasn't happy with this arrangement. During a stream, when a fan mentioned they were excited to see him at the upcoming LTX, he didn't hold back and explained why he wasn't planning to attend.
I'm going to your event for free. You're charging a lot of money for tickets to this event. Like last year, I think it was like $300 or $500 to be able to have dinner with Linus. I'm going to be going there for free. You're going to kind of be able to advertise that I'm there for free. You're charging people to go to the event. You're nickel and diming me about my +1. How about I don't go to your event? That really put a bad taste in my mouth.
In his new video on Linus, Lewis revisited the situation, revealing the manipulative email Linus sent him after that stream.
Which is this victimhood thing, by accusing me of spinning a story, and he turns a business decision into a personal attack. He gaslights me by saying I seem emotional when my email is actually quite measured and business focused. The most telling part of this is that he took a very simple business decision and he dug into this little bag of guilt and he pulled something out just to manipulate me a year and a half later.
According to Lewis, the email was yet another example of Linus's attempt to control the narrative whenever faced with opposition, and this behavior from Linus wasn't new. Lewis brought receipts to show that Linus had been using similar tactics for nearly 6 years. For context, in Linus's response to Steve's original expose in 2023, he shared a lengthy text message he had sent to Steve on the same day the video was published. This message boiled down to burying the hatchet and wanting to move forwards, stating, "I'll be moving forwards as normal and won't be participating in any kind of nonsense public sniping. It'd be good for views or whatever, but I'm pretty focused on growing the company and our test capabilities and our team. You're still welcome at future LTX events and would be happy to resume working together in good faith if you ever decide again that working together as press is good for the industry." However, according to Linus, Steve never responded. This made Steve look like a childish, petty person who was incapable of settling his differences and moving forwards in a positive way. That is, until Lewis made this crazy revelation.
So Steve's telling me about this message and he reads it to me. And Steve says, "Oh, I didn't get this message. This is weird. I never got this. Oh, that's interesting. It looks like it got sent to my other phone." I asked Steve about the history of his phone numbers, and apparently Steve had his number changed several years ago, and he alerted everybody to it, including you. So I asked Steve, "How often has Linus texted you on this old phone?" And he says, "Never." I asked Steve, "How often do you talk to Linus on your new phone?" "Oh, many times. We've talked several times in this new phone. He messaged me when his channel got hacked. He's messaged me back and forth about other things." So this one text message that would make you look really bad if you didn't reply to it, that he showed on screen later in a video where he's defining morality and showing how you don't live up to it, is a message that he sent to a phone number he knows you don't use anymore.
Put simply, Lewis accused Linus of deliberately sending the text to the wrong number. That way, he could later weaponize Steve's lack of response against him. And to top it all off, Lewis ended his video by addressing Linus's sponsors directly, calling them out for supporting him.
All you people that are complaining in private about getting bullied by this man and about reading the same type of manipulative shit, I guarantee you, your products will continue to sell without giving him tens of thousands of dollars. And someone admitting that they cared more about their image than telling their 14 million audience members that a closed source piece of software they installed in their computer was being created by thieves? This guy's endorsement isn't even worth a greenie.
Both Steve's blog and this video from Lewis forced Linus to respond yet again. However, the only point Linus addressed directly was a past comment he made about Steve, referring to him as, quote, "less autistic than you used to be." Linus publicly apologized for it.
I will meet my faults and my errors head on. I'm sorry that I used unprofessional language, and if I ever said this. Truthfully, I don't recall it, but if I did, I take that back 100%. I'm sorry, and I will work to do better.
Other than that, Linus claimed that he's done everything he can and that he doesn't want to be part of this drama anymore.
Calls to end the drama, but I can only control my side in this. My team and I have issued corrections and retractions where needed. We will continue to do so. There's a couple fixes that we need for the 5090 video. They're pinned under the video. We're getting all of that sorted. Meanwhile, the other side is spitting on our olive branch, lawyering up, publicly attacking my credibility with no indication that it will end, and now seemingly colluding with other creators to smear me in public. I don't want to play this stupid game anymore.
However, Lewis later posted another video doubling down on his claims and saying that the only thing he regrets is the length of that video.
A lot of people who have asked me, do I feel regret for the video that I did, the 1 hour long video on LinusTechTips, and I will say that I have some deep regret. I stand behind everything that I said in that video. The problem was the presentation. That video was 1 hour. It should have been 3 to 5 minutes.
This is where things stand right now. None of the creators involved in the feud have made any further posts or videos addressing each other or the drama, and the community's response to this ending is even more chaotic than it was before Lewis posted his video. Some argue that Lewis unnecessarily inserted himself into a conflict he wasn't directly involved in, and accuse him of being overly dramatic to paint LTT in a negative light. Like this one person under a Reddit post discussing Lewis's video who wrote, TLGR, Rossman left out details to make himself look good and shit on Linus and LMG. On the other hand, some people are completely on Lewis's and Steve's side, bashing Linus for being a horrible person, especially since he didn't even bother responding to the allegations Lewis made about his text to the wrong number, with a sarcastic comment on YouTube stating, employees complain and quit, their fault. Merch buyers complain, their fault. Float playing complaints, their fault. Sponsor complaints, their fault. Other influencers complain, their fault. LTX participants complain, their fault. Damn, LMG must be the best company ever. So many complaints, yet always in the right. And then there are those who are still firmly behind Linus, and believe that the other two are in the wrong for escalating things so far, reading, Linus is no angel, but the videos of GamersNexus and Lewis makes it look like he's the devil. Linus had already admitted he made some mistakes and is willing to make amends. The vast majority of people, however, saw this whole thing as childish and unnecessary. They are simply tired of all the drama and are just happy that things have gone back to normal, with a frustrated LTT fan writing, regardless of what you want/intend, you are escalating things by having an aggressive defense in a broadcasted format. You need to sit down and converse with GN face to face, where there can be real dialogue, rather than poking fire at every WAN show and having the next week play out in response. In his last video about the feud, Steve mentioned that he'll meet Linus in person at an event this May. Hopefully they can resolve their differences professionally and keep things from spiraling further before then. Otherwise, they'll end up looking just as childish as Tommy and Dream in their latest feud. Click the video on screen to find out more.